August 20th, 2022. Well, it looks like that Senator McConnell has made a bit of a gaffe, which we kind of say it's when a politician inadvertently says the truth. And that is that it does look like our crop of Senate candidates this year are a little suboptimal if the definition of optimal is winning the election. Although there are some good ones in there too. But I think that I would agree with the critics that say he shouldn't have said that. Although Senator Grassley is spun it as he's just trying to warn everybody that we need to get in gear and make things happen. And on that level, I would have to say that it looks like the Democrats are raising, it looks like an inordinate amount of money. And so perhaps it is time for us all to kind of make some contributions to the Senate and House campaign committees, and maybe a little bit to the Senate now. Because this is a very serious election year, and we don't need to lose it. But I'll get into the situation here a little bit and try to explain kind of where I see the situation at the moment. Basically, the other thing you have to watch out is a lot of polling. All polling isn't equal, and so we'll have to get into a little of that too. By the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like if you're a subscriber. If not, please subscribe. We need more subscriptions. That helps out to grow the channel and get more information out. And of course, comments are appreciated. Yes, so I would like to say that first of all, let's look at the generic ballot, which is a measure probably more relevant to the House and the Senate. And on that, right now, the real clear average is at a tie, which is quite a bit worse than the last time I discussed this on here. On the other hand, I point out that you have two sets of polls. There are currently 8 polls in this average. The average is the 0, a flat tie, meaning equal number of Democrat and Republican, votes. Okay, so if you look at the best Republican polls are Rasmussen and Trafalgar, which has the Republicans up 5-point advantage. And of course, I think Economist YouGov has the Democrats up 6 points. And I think the Politico Morning Consult has the Democrats up 4 points. Fox News has them at a tie. However, if you, how would you say, segregate these polls into the likely voter polls and the registered voter polls. Now, registered voter means that the people that are asked the question, are you registered to vote? And they're just counting those people in the poll. People are not registered to vote, they don't count, okay? And then the likely voter polls, they have an additional screen of some sort to determine that they think they're likely to vote, which could be as simple as saying, are you likely to vote in the coming midterm election? Or they could get a little more detailed. Have you voted? Were you eligible to vote in the previous election? And if you did you vote? That could be another thing you could do. So what each individual poll has their own screening technique, and I don't know what they don't really say what their screening technique is usually. So at any rate, but separating out by that, but likely voters have Republicans up 3.25%. And the registered voter polls averages of being down 3.25%, which is how you get to your 0. So that could very well be interpreted as, in fact, the Republicans are ahead by 6.5%. Probably a little optimistic, but maybe not as far off as people think. So that's why I think that there is a good prospect that the Republicans will gain a fair number of seats in the House races, unless something goes dramatically wrong. The Senate has the problem that in addition to this likely voter thing, it's more of a statewide race, and whereas the individual House districts are kind of spread out in areas where some are kind of designed to be for Democrats and some are kind of designed to be for Republicans, the state are just what the states are, and they almost all include areas that are strong for both. So, at any rate, that kind of gives you that. So let's look at some of the situations we're looking at. I think we look fairly good in Missouri. The latest poll, I think, has a Republican up 6%, and probably will do better than that in the final vote. In in Ohio, which people have been continuing to suggest that Vance was doing a lot of problems. In fact, Vance is up 3% in the latest poll, and in fact, he was up in the last poll they took before that. So I tend to think that he's hanging in there. Ohio's a pretty strong Republican state. I think he's a strong candidate. When you look at Wisconsin, there's only one poll out I've seen so well. I guess there's a couple. What poll out right now has a Democrat up 7%, but it's a Marquette University poll, which is university polls always give me some questions because universities tend to be full of liberals. I mean, these are done by the poli-sci department of a university. So, but at any rate, that's something to be on guard for. So people in Wisconsin ought to contribute more to Ron Johnson's campaign. After all, we need all the support we can get. And there is a poll out. There's one poll out recently in Florida which has Rubio down by 4%. However, the same poll has DeSantis up by 6 or 7%, depending on which of the two Democrats he ends up running against. So I would say that I would look at it this way, that in reality, I'm doubtful that Rubio is going to lose this thing. I think that, but it is another area where you need to focus, and he definitely needs more campaign contributions. Definitely a Democrat is out raising him, and so that's an area that people need to think about if you're in Florida to help out there. My general approach on races that are out of state, I tend to give to the Senate and House National Republican campaign committees, because I figure that they will distribute the money where they see it's most useful. But you can also pick, if in your own state, you need to support your own candidates. I guess that's just kind of my pitch, that we need to think about this, rather than spending all our time being mad at McConnell for his gaffe. And perhaps it was meant to be a motivational, who knows. I even come up with another idea. Maybe it was a trick. Try to convince the Democrats to focus less on the Senate races and more on the House races, and maybe it'll give us a better competitive advantage on the Senate side. That could be what he's doing. I don't think Kevin McCarthy would appreciate that, though. Anyhow, so at any rate, that's kind of the way I see it. That one good news, a recent poll in Nevada shows Laxalt up by 3 points. So, and I think this is a possibility. The one that's doing the worst right now, of course, is Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, and clearly he needs to get his act together. Another thing I would recommend, particularly any of you that are on True Social, is send a message to Trump to say, unleash some of that Save America money to help out his two picks that got in there. I mean, the two real picks that he's most instrumental in are Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker in Georgia, right? Some of the others, I think, have other benefactors. I mean, he endorsed a lot of people. In fact, even two candidates in Missouri, right? But those are the two he's most responsible for actually getting across the hump there. And so my viewpoint is that he needs to step up and give a little money to support those people, meaning that he could run ads. He can't actually legally consult with them, I guess, but he could definitely run ads and negative ads against their opponents. And certainly in the case of Pennsylvania, there's plenty of room for negative ads against that individual. So I would say don't panic yet, but get motivated on the Senate side. On the House side, I would say that I think we got a good chance of picking up the House and gaining some seats. But of course, don't get overconfident. I mean, it's a very competitive race, and the other fly in the ointment we have right now is which something I've been discussing in the last three videos, is the impact of the Mar-a-Lago raid by the government, on the Obama government. Biden government. Gee, flashback to the past. Is it really? Maybe it is the Obama government, really. I mean, after all, we don't think Biden is really running his own government. So who is pulling the strings? But at any rate, little gaffe there of my own. But the point is, that what effect was this going to have on the election? And I think that's an interesting area to think about. I mean, I think we'd definitely be better if it didn't happen. Will it have the effect of taking Trump off the campaign trail some, or will he still be out there as much? I mean, it's another interesting thing because I don't think that Biden is much use as a campaigner for the Democrats. The fake Inflation Reduction Act aside, I just don't think that's the case. But it is an interesting issue what impact this will have. It looks to me like that though, that any way you slice it, no matter how unfair it is, you realize that the Democrats do have a weapon here, and that is they have the Justice Department. And if these trials are actually going to come to, that's going to be an interesting question what the ultimate venue is going to be. If there is a trial, will it be D.C. or will it actually be Florida? That may have a big impact on how things actually perform, because D.C. is going to be very pro-Democrat. And certainly, it's the D.C. U.S. attorney that's obviously pressing this subpoena. And we don't know how far the Democrats are really planning on pushing this thing. Are they really just trying to seize these documents? Because it looks to me like a lot of the documents that were seized were probably basically documents that President Trump had declared unclassified that had to do with the fake Russia investigation and the way they handled the Hillary Clinton investigation. And this was supposed to be kind of his little bit of payback, I guess, to the investigators, but I guess they've made a little counter move here. So that's, I think, mainly what's there. And as I say, there could very well be many other documents in there. I doubt that any of them are going to actually tell you how to make a nuclear bomb, however. I don't know what they mean by nuclear secrets. I mean, they talk about U.S. war plan contingency stuff. I mean, after all, there is one. I don't know, is it a briefing on that, or is it really intelligence about the Iranian nuclear program, the North Korean nuclear program? Certainly he had plenty of discussion of that subject while in office, so that could be that. But I think the point is that they do have the possibility of actually doing an indictment. If it's done in D.C., they have a fairly chance of probably getting a conviction, frankly. Because, I mean, look at the jury pool they got there. 92% of the registered voters in D.C. are voted for Biden. So, the chance of getting a Republican on the jury is not that great, and who knows. So, that's a real risk he faces. His best chance, I think, right now is something that's already been floated, is the idea of actually launching a challenge against the whole search warrant, to try to claim the search warrant is illegal. Again, it depends on the judge and the jury on that thing. That's going to be a long shot to get that. But that's the only way I see he could end this whole thing quickly. And even quickly could still be a matter of months, because it probably still has to run up to the Supreme Court before it's over with. And that may not mean the Supreme Court hears the case, but if he had a favorable outcome in a lower court, they might refuse to hear the case and let the lower court stand. If they hear it, that probably even drags it out a lot longer. So you see the problem that we've got right now in that. So, but I don't know how that's going to affect the election. Some people think that this was done because they felt that the January 6th committee really didn't do what they needed. Or this could be just the rational, another next move in their arsenal of dirty tricks. But at any rate, that's something to bear in mind here that could have some impact on what I presented earlier. But we just don't know yet. One approach is it could very well fire up the Republican base and help our turnout. I mean, Rasmussen's up 2 points over last week, so one could argue that, or it could just be random variation. Other things I see affecting the election here, I think one reason why the polls were moving in the Democrat direction over the last few months one thing, the stock market had been in what I'd call a bear market rally, at least that's my opinion. And therefore, Um, uh, as that meant the people's 401ks were improving over the dip that they'd had earlier in the spring when they were diving very rapidly. They're not back to break even yet. So depending on how people look at, maybe the improvement is taking some of the tension off. Also, gasoline prices have been dropping because Biden's been dumping large amounts of oil out of the strategic reserves into the marketplace, depleting our strategic reserves if we have a real crisis, but using it for political purposes. And so, that's so those kind of things could be affecting up to now. Now, then, on the other hand, now as we go into the fall, I think we probably will see the market correcting again because certainly September and October are notorious months for market downturns. So that could take away some of that 401k bubble. The gasoline prices probably will remain constant. Well, I don't think they're going to go much lower. Let's put it like they might even bump a little bit, but I think we're kind of down there. And so, those are the kind of issues that could push the Republican advantage back up again. Just to kind of look at the, analysis of what could happen. On that, and then of course we have these impacting political events. We don't know what else could drop. But one thing we can hope is the Republicans start waging a pretty tough campaign. They really do need to focus on the crime factor. I mean, the Democrats are just definitely soft on street crime and seem to almost be aiding and abetting it to some degree. And that needs to be driven home, I mean, the focus strongly, I think they need to do on the all these IRS agents that they propose to hire, which are going to be auditing, small business and middle class people and independent contractors. And anybody that's working in a cash-oriented business, they're going to be after you. And so I think that might also help out a little bit in the in getting the Republicans in a better position. And beyond that, I think that the actual fall campaign hasn't been launched yet. I mean, one thing that held the Republicans down probably were all the battles in our own primaries in the summer. But now that will soon be over with, the Florida's next week, and I think there's New Hampshire and a couple, but New York congressional. But after that, I think things will calm down a little bit and we can focus on the campaign. And I think that Republican campaigns are going to expose a lot of people that don't normally watch Fox News or Newsmax or, follow conservative sources that much to things that they probably aren't that aware of. I mean, how many of these people have really been seeing what's been going on the border if CNN and MSNBC are your main news sources or just social media? So I think some of the TV ads in that period may become helpful as we move out. On the downside, of course, we're going to run into some social media censorship and all those fact checkers that just don't have many facts on their side. So anyway, that's kind of my thing, my analysis. I think we're still pretty good to take the House by a reasonable measure, and the Senate is going to be a real tough battle. But I think it's possible. I mean, there's possibilities that we may pick up in states where we might lose some too. Like we have no information on how Colorado is going so far. And in this case, in Colorado, I guess they did get the candidate that McConnell wanted. So we'll see. It'll be a test. A lot of people try to knock Master, but I think he's a pretty good guy in Arizona. I think he's may not be the optimum candidate to win, but the optimum candidate was probably their attorney general that came in third. So, at any rate, but I think he's a solid contender, and I think he can make a strong case. And so, if the Tucker Carlson theory of politics is right, well, then you got your guy there. Anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. By the way, I want to mention I do post these also on Rumble. It's kind of my backup channel, and I don't get as much attention there, but most of the time, but I'm there. And also the addresses of my social media accounts are on Twitter and Gab and Parler and Gettr and True Social or below. So you can check those out. I'm most frequently on Twitter. And I'll wrap this up for now. Until next time.